Welcome to the Postgame show powered by SmeeSports. I am Nate Smee of SmeeSports. Alongside me, we got Vanilla Sports, Gabe Cozza here, doing a little bit of collaboration after some great games.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a great week in NFL, gearing up for postseason. It's been an awesome year, and I'm excited to see how it turns out in the end.
Some fans are not so excited to see how it turns off. We're going to start with one that's not so excited, the New York Jets. Lost by 17 to the Browns, 37-20. Thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was pure domination by the Browns in the first half, offensively and defensively. And if you're a Jets fan right now, you got to be thinking, why didn't you just pick up your phone when Joe Flacco called? It's been a disappointing year, but they still do have a good defense. And maybe next year Aaron Rodgers can be a superhero and have this team at 10 wins and maybe a wild card game next year.
He's going to need to be, but that's a tough division. You got two teams
Sure.
who next week are playing for that division crown.
Yeah.
Patriots, not so much. But the Browns, they look good. They're a banged-up roster. Eli Moore, another addition to the injury report, but a good team. What's their ceiling? What's their floor in the playoffs?
Ceiling, as crazy as it is to say, I think it's Super Bowl. I think Joe Flacco is playing at a level that is really unmatched from a Browns quarterback since probably Baker Mayfield back in 2020. And with this defense, with an offensive line that is playing good despite losing their two left tackle and right tackle, I think that this team can go to the Super Bowl. They've beaten the Ravens in the past. Granted, that was when they had less injuries, but I still think they can do it. You still got Myles Garrett out there. You still got Greg Newsome. Still got Denzel Ward. Still got Martin Emerson. And you still got Jim Schwartz. So, sky's the limit for them.
I think it just depends. The first round, I think you beat AFC South opposition. You could worry about the Texans. If it's the Jags or the Colts, you're taking care of them.
I think so, yeah.
And then you go to the Ravens, MNT. If playoff Lamar does not do what playoff Lamar used to do, they're fine. AFC Championship game, it depends where you go at that point.
Yeah.
You're probably most likely going to have to go to Buffalo.
Yeah.
I think they're winning next week in that game. But we'll get to them in a minute. I think that's where you go. But honestly, it's an exciting year for the Browns. Even if it's a first-round exit, disappointing or whatever. I know Juan Thornhill on Twitter, they don't care where they play. They're just glad to be there. And another team glad to be where they are is the Lions. But after last night, not so glad. 20-19 loss. Head-scratching decisions. What are your thoughts of the final two plays that really mattered?
Dan Campbell has, I don't know how he does, but this man is the most aggressive play caller we've seen in a while. I get it. You won the division. You want to be aggressive. You want to beat the good teams. You want to be able to say, we're the brand new Lions. We're not the same teams. We're not the same Lions teams that we're going to choke and lose these type of games. So you go for it. And you get it, but there's a bad call. Now you get the ball. I believe they're on 8-yard line, or the Cowboys' 8-yard line. Dan Campbell has got to calm down, kick the field goal, take this game in overtime, and get a chance to still win this game. So I think it's still a Lions team that is probably 2B in the NFC. I think that they're very capable of giving the 49ers a game in Santa Clara. But I still don't think they're on the 49ers level, and they're definitely not on their level if Dan Campbell keeps this aggressive play calling up.
I agree with you. Dallas, after that loss to the Dolphins, they needed that one. I have a question for Jared Goff. Why do you throw the ball short, not in the end zone? Dump ball to Laporta or Amon-Ra. I think that was the easiest play call you could have done. Or have Taylor Decker actually report as eligible, even though maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
Cowboys, good win for them. Lions, tough one to have.
Yeah.
I don't think we see either of these teams in the Super Bowl this year, though. I think it's the Niners. Like you said,
agree.
it's 2AB for the other ones. You got the Niners at 1. That's just everyone else. I think anyone from whoever wins the South all the way down to Seattle and the two teams are about to play next, the Vikings and the Packers, could do something.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go back to the AFC. The Texans, they beat, technically the former Houston team, and the Titans 26-3. Big game. Levis went down early in that one, but C.J. Stroud, after his injury, he looked really good. What do you think of him now?
C.J. Stroud looked amazing, and this Texans team has really been the story of an underdog. This is a team that people didn't think was going to win that many games. They thought, there were people calling the Will Anderson trade one of the dumbest trades in the last couple of years.
Myself included. I thought it was an interesting move to go for that this early.
Yeah, but what they're proving, they got talent on this team. They got one of the best young quarterbacks in this league, and they got one of the best new head coaches in this league. DeMeco Ryans has done an amazing job. And if you're the Titans, Will Levis, I think you got a guy in him. But it's going to be a big question in the offseason with Mike Vrabel. What happens to him? What happens to Derrick Henry? You got to build up this offensive line. So a lot of question marks with the Titans, and we'll see what they do in the offseason to address those.
I think I do a full-on rebuild for the Titans. You got to blow it up and begin with Will Levis. If that's your guy,
Yeah.
Malik Willis, if for some reason the front office says, you know what, we wasted that second-round pick on him in 22, we're going to give him one last shot, which shouldn't happen for the non-Mayo man of the room.
Yeah.
But the Texans, honestly, they're running back away, I think, from a Super Bowl contention. I'd say you got
defensive players,
defensive players too. DBs, you got Stingley, who's done the job, Petrie.
Yeah.
But I think this is a move where, call me crazy with this one, Jair's having his issues in Green Bay. Is that someone you get out there, pair him with Stingley?
Potentially. Just as long as he's not going out there for the coin toss, I think you can get an amazing player.
I agree with you. And now let's go to a game that, in the grand scheme of things, mean nothing for the Bears, but everything for the Falcons. And they did what the Falcons have done over the last couple of years, and that's choke when the pressure's on them. Lost by 20. The Bears, Justin Fields, even if it's not in Chicago, he's earned himself a job next year.
100%, I think so. And I think Mac Eberflus has done a really nice job with this defense. You look at the trade for Montez Sweat. Tons of people calling that a bad trade, giving up a second-round pick for that. As previous, the year before, they gave up a second-round pick for Chase Claypool. But Ryan Poles did a great job with that trade, signing him to an extension. He has been the difference maker on this defense. You got guys like Jalen Johnson who have done a phenomenal job playing like a top 5 corner this year. Defense playing well. Justin Fields doing what he does the best. And I think this is a solid Bears team that is a couple pieces away from being a contender in their own division.
I think technically they can still make the playoffs. As of right now, I think they still have an outside shot to do it. But the Falcons, man, Arthur Smith, at this time next week, you will be not with the Falcons. I don't think there's a way they keep him. I look at Bijan, I look at Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts, man. If this man doesn't succeed in the NFL, I think a lot of Falcons
fans... He should
be
tried for war crimes. Honestly. He should be tried. Because it's ridiculous the amount of talent they have on this team. They bring in Jesse Bates. He has a career year for them. Have Drake London. We know what he's capable of doing. We know what Bijan Robinson is capable of doing. We know what Kyle Pitts is capable of doing. Yeah, Tyler Algier. Lindstrom, the guard, has been one of the best guards in the league. There is talent on this team, but the coaching staff isn't getting it done. And it's very easy to point the finger at Arthur Smith, and I think you should point at him, and I think he should be fired, like you said.
Here's an interesting thing, though. The Bears have clinched the number 1 pick because of the Panthers. We'll get to them in a minute.
Yep.
If Justin Fields isn't the guy and they go with Caleb, I think the Falcons are the first team that calls, and unlike Deshaun Watson, they get this deal done pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a lot of talent on the Falcons, but they are missing a pretty big piece at quarterback. Desmond Ridder has been awful. We love Taylor Heinicke. We love the underdog story, but he's not a franchise quarterback. You got to get one of them. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, one of them. You got to get a new starter in there next year.
And speaking of franchise quarterbacks, you got MVP Lamar times 2. He's the MVP.
100%. This Lamar Jackson is playing even better than his 2019 MVP version, in my opinion. He's better in the pocket. He can throw the ball. What happened to everyone calling him a running back? Don't look like a running back anymore. He's got his team blowing out contenders, blowing out the Lions, blowing out the Dolphins. These wins are impressive. Seahawks, impressive wins for a team that a lot of people before the season thought they would be the backseat to the Bengals. And to their credit, the Bengals have a lot of injuries, but still, it's impressive. Good job by John Harbaugh with that coaching.
I think it's fitting that Lamar solidified the MVP against the team that he started his run in 2019. Yeah. That was a big Dolphins win, and it was a pretty similar scoreline. I don't have the exact numbers on it.
Yeah.
It's pretty darn close. I think he solidified it. Tua, still a good team. Get Jalen Waddle back. It doesn't make a difference. But I want to highlight Justice Hill real quick. Not the best running back in the NFL, but he had 2 great routes he ran today. The first real route and the second one were both great in that first quarter. The first was PI. The second one, no one was in the vicinity. I don't know what happened. Javon Holland feels on vacation.
Something like that, yeah.
I don't know what happened. He just got open and got in space. They've done an excellent job munking the OC.
For sure. And McDonald, I think, like the Eagles last year, there's a chance that the Ravens could, maybe not next offseason, but the coming off seasons, could lose both of their coordinators to head coaching jobs. Mike McDonald, I believe is his name, Ravens defense coordinator. He's done an unbelievable job with that group. Use the development of Kyle Hamilton, some other secondary players they have there, Brandon Stevens, Geno Stone having a nice year, Marlon Humphrey doing what he does good for them, Justin Mabuke having a great year. It's been, if you're a Ravens fan right now, this has got to be like the best time of your life.
And then now let's go to the AFC East. I think keep this one pretty short and sweet. The Bills will probably win that division. I think they win next week. They have been red hot ever since Kadarius Toney gifted them a game.
Yeah.
Then the Patriots. If Bill Belichick's there or not next year, it's not going to make a difference. Whoever the quarterback is, it's not going to make that big of a difference yet. They're slated for, I believe, the 2 pick.
Yeah.
I think it's either Maserati or Caleb. I don't think there's a world of chance that Drake May goes too. I just don't see Bill Belichick going for that kind of. I would even see him going Brock Bowers if he's the GM. Yeah. Not that he should go with him. I just think it's something that he'd do.
Yeah, I think Bill Belichick right now is chasing Don Shula's record, and I think he wants that more than anything else. Dare I say he wants that more than a Lombardi, and I think
he has enough of them.
Yeah, he has enough. So I think he might not want to take a chance on a rookie quarterback like Smee said, and might potentially want to go with a guy like Brock Bowers, Marvin Harrison Jr., some skill position player that they really have been needing all season long. And if you're the Bills, Joe Brady, this guy's like the MVP for you. You fire Ken Dorsey in the middle of the season. You get Joe Brady in. You finally see balance in this offense. You're finally seeing a Bills team that can run the ball. And watch out. I think the only team in the AFC two teams in the AFC that can give the Ravens a game is the Browns and the Bills. And we'll see in the playoffs, as the Ravens are probably still going to be favorites over them, but anything can happen.
And then now let's take a look at the next game. Ooh. The student has become the master, you can say. John Gannon, 35-31, beating the Eagles, another NEO guy doing some good things.
Yeah, St. Ignatius grad. Shout out.
St. Ignatius grads. Plenty of them doing stuff in the NFL. You can look at Eichenberg over with the Dolphins. But, man, the Eagles right now, that's got to be pushing them. It's pushing them the wrong way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate if you're the Eagles. You lose both of your coordinators to head coaching jobs. So, obviously, it's going to be very hard to replace those guys. And we've seen what the Colts head coach has been able to do and what he's been able to do with the lack of talent on this team. It's been unbelievable. And like you mentioned, Jonathan Gannon, he's only won 4 or 5 games this year. But look at some of the wins he has. Cowboys, Eagles on the road, Steelers on the road. Those are impressive wins when you look at a roster that really doesn't have much talent on it, top to bottom. So I think for the Eagles, I think you're definitely panicking right now and looking forward to potentially some changes in the offseason.
I feel like there's some changes I could put my finger on here. The running game, you got to figure that out. I think right now, Gainwell's done some stuff. I think Swift is your one.
Yeah.
I think you just cut a bunch of that. I wouldn't let him get a bunch of reps.
Yeah.
You got to look at your receiver core. Dallas Goedert had a couple good games, but he's ghosted at some big moments. That might be one to look at. Defensively,
it's a mess. Defensive backs are a mess. Slay is good, but apart from Slay, you really don't have anybody that I trust.
Fired out trust.
Yeah, but if you're talking about corners, I don't trust any of these guys against wide receiver number ones. And you look at just their defense in general, a lot of it was they had so many sacks last year. Guys like Hassan Reddick and some of these guys were getting to the quarterback at a lot last season. So obviously there's going to be some regression when there's less sacks and the quarterback has more time to throw the ball.
And speaking of throwing things, Jags and Panthers.
Yeah.
26-0. The Panthers is not looking good for them. Bryce Young is not looking like that guy. There's still plenty of time. I'm hopeful for Bryce that he can do something. Yeah. Miles Sanders, that move was pretty bad. Chuba's now the main guy there. Yeah. Wide receivers.
Adam Thielen's had some nice games. And apart from that, there's a whole lot of nothing.
Tommy T needs to step up a little bit.
Yeah, Terrence Marshall Jr., former second-round pick, has not panned out in the NFL. And, yeah, the Panthers are a mess right now. It's no question. They don't have their first-round pick this year.
First pick.
The first pick in the NFL draft. It's going to be many years until Panthers fans can finally experience some joy at being a fan of this team. If you're a Panthers fan, find some excuse right now to jump ship. But as for the Jaguars, I don't think this win changes much. They were on a skid. Trevor Lawrence didn't play today. But you got to keep in mind they were playing the worst team in the league. So I don't know how much you can really take away from a team when you're playing the worst team in the league.
I agree with you. The Panthers, I feel like if you drafted Bryce Young 5 years down the line, that was better. That move, trading for him. Yeah. And getting rid of DJ Moore in that move was, he's doing really well. But now let's go. Colts, Raiders. Raiders put up a good fight. Their season's done. But I think, not popular opinion, AOC, he's the guy.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you look at, I remember his name now, Shane Steichen. I'm going to continue to praise him. Because I think that what he's been able to do is unbelievable, and AOC as well. They've done an unbelievable job, considering what was left of them. If you look at Antonio Pierce, if you look at where the Raiders were, there was arguments in the locker room. This team wasn't playing well at all. They cut Derek Carr the last season, and there were just a lot of question marks about this team. Remember Devontae Adams' frustrations in Detroit earlier in the season. So I think what the Raiders are doing right now is already good enough to guarantee Antonio Pierce a job next year. But
yeah, we thought about Rick Fasaccio, though. I do have to say, though, Aiden O'Connell, he went to Purdue and didn't win many games, but in the NFL, all of a sudden has the clutch gene in him.
Yeah.
He is good. It's just unfortunate that they're out of the playoffs. It wasn't his fault they're out. The Colts arguably should be a 10-16 right now if officiating goes their way against the Browns.
Yeah.
Which then bumps the Browns to a 6 seed in that thing. A lot of things that could change.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. They keep it a 5 seed because of divisional. But still, it's a big what if the Colts don't make the playoffs.
For sure. But if you're a Colts fan, got a lot to look forward to. If Anthony Richardson can get healthy and he can develop, I think you got a top 5 quarterback when he's playing healthy and when he's playing at his best. Unbelievable athlete that the Colts found in the draft.
Uncle Rico's starting somewhere next year. Where is he starting? He has to.
It's tough to say right now. I don't know. I could throw out the Falcons. I could throw out the Patriots. I could throw out just basically anybody that needs a quarterback. Maybe Browns, maybe Steelers. There's a lot of teams,
No Saints conversation in there.
Yeah. Derek Carr, if they cut Derek Carr, there's a lot of dead money involved in that. I think they're going to ride with Derek Carr next year. That's just my opinion. But he very much could go to the Saints. But
And then let's go to a man who means no worries, Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
4 receptions, 29 yards away from that all-time receiving record as a rookie. A tight win against the Giants. I think the Rams convincingly into the playoffs, but they're not going to win a game. I don't see them beating the Rams beating the Lions, I don't see them beating the Eagles. I don't see them making a run. Only because of today. I mean, yeah, the Eagles struggle against the Giants too, but this Giants team isn't like Danny Dimes at his best.
Yeah.
Saquon, he's at his best right now. I have to say that he is.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't had the breakout yet of Wandale. He played pretty well today.
Yeah.
You're a couple pieces away, and the Leonard Williams trade, I think that one signaled.
You gotta look at the Darren Waller move too. I mean, if you can get some production out of him, that would be awesome for him. But going back to the Rams, this is another coaching masterpiece by offense coordinator and head coach Sean McVay and defense coordinator Raheem Morris. If you look at the talent on both sides of the ball, it is just not there. You look at defensively, there's probably only one guy on that defense I can confidently say could be a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro. The rest of the guys are really just, I don't want to insult them, but they're just kind of average players that are playing awesome in this Raheem Morris defense. I thought the Rams would have one of the worst defenses in the league, but they've really surprised me in holding teams to points. And then offensively, I thought this would be one of the worst offensive lines in the league. They trade for Kevin Dotson. He starts to play well. They got the rookie, Steve Avila. He's playing well. Puka Nacua, like you mentioned, is playing well. And Matt Stafford's playing some good football. So shout out to the Rams. Like you said, I don't know what their playoff hopes look like, but I think Sean McVay has a couple more reasons to stay in Los Angeles, I think.
And one reason might be leaving and might be the new head coach of the Commanders this coming year. I'd say Raheem Morris. We talked about earlier, the Commanders' defense struggled, 27-10. Purdy, he's back to playing the football we know him. CMC, don't know if he came back in that game after that injury he had. Everyone else looks solid. Nothing else to say about the Niners. They're probably going to run away with the NFC. Otherwise, you go to AB. Yeah. Maybe the Eagles get a sniff in there. Or the craziest thing could happen. Baker Mayfield gets the clutch gene. Turns into playoff Baker Mayfield. No, not playoff Lenny. Playoff Baker.
Playoff Baker. I mean, we'll have to, it could happen. Very unlikely, but
going back toe-to-toe with the Chiefs.
Yeah, he did.
And one call away from, let's be real, if Higgins was called the way it should have been, I think the Browns are in the Super Bowl that year. I don't think.
Who would they play that year? The Bills in the AFC Championship, I believe.
I think it was the Bills, and that might have been the overtime game.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. So that's a game I can go back and forth with. But going back to this week's slate of games, look at the Commanders and the 49ers. Niners, it's just same old, same old. One of the most talented teams in the league, one of the best offensively coached teams in the league, and a team that is hungry to get that Super Bowl after what happened last season. And the Commanders, tons of questions. Defense, like you mentioned, has been awful. Raheem Moore, maybe he could be hired. There's potential for that. But I really think they should go with Eric Bieniemy. I think the development of Sam Howell and development of any future quarterback should be their number one priority, because let's be real. When's the last time Washington had a franchise quarterback? Kirk Cousins?
Doug.
Yeah, I guess probably him, but
Doug's the only one.
yeah, that
Just
is true. Yeah, that's true. RG3 obviously had some injuries involved, but really not really a franchise guy.
No.
So I think that Washington has a lot of questions to ask. They're going to have the number 2 pick in the draft, which, well, as we speak, which most likely means that probably Caleb or Drake May or potentially
Olu
Fashionow, potentially Jaden Daniels. We'll have to see and wait, but it's just an interesting time for Washington Commanders fans, for sure.
Speaking of interesting times, you got the 2005 Super Bowl. Seahawks. Steelers won by 7. Pickens and Metcalf both look pretty good today. Pickens looked better on the day, I do have to say. Battle of the running backs went to Najee and Jalen Warren, with the exception of one singular play where Devon Witherspoon upped him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the Steelers look like they probably should have won that game by a lot more than they did.
Yeah, and as you can see on the bottom, Super Bowl XL in Detroit. I got to rep our win there. But
I'm repping the loss.
Anyways, if you're the Steelers, I think Kenny Pickett is out of the question in the future. I know it's a small sample size, but when you're comparing...
Hands?
Huh?
Small hands?
Yeah, that as well, too. But when you're comparing ceiling to ceiling, I think Mason Rudolph is a better ceiling. And not only that, he's elevating the talent. Look at what George Pickens is finally doing when he has capable quarterbacks that can get him the ball down the field. George Pickens is a star, and he's not listening to you. He's not listening to y'all. He's not listening to any what y'all say. He's going to go out there and perform. I like what I've seen out of George Pickens so far, but defensively speaking, I think the Steelers really banged up, so I don't really think you can judge them on that point, losing all 3 starting linebackers and pretty much all of their safeties. And I think Mike Tomlin silenced a lot of haters. This was probably one of the Steelers' biggest wins in a while, and shout out to them. And as for Seattle, I think there's legitimate questions at the quarterback position, whether you want to go with Drew Lock or not. I think you could, but I don't know how much different Drew Lock is going to be from Geno Smith.
As the resident Seahawks fan, I think we lose that game against Philadelphia with Geno Smith. Geno Smith just didn't look confident out there. He had his stats good, but he didn't look confident. Drew Lock's throw to JSN, there's a 1 in 10 chance that Geno took that shot. There's a 1 in 10.
Yeah.
There's no way he took that one. Drew Lock, he's always been that gunslinger. You have, the
backpack kid.
The backpack kid celebration. He's always been like that, but I think you keep a kid home in Washington. Penix. I think you got to go with him. I think you can get him in round 2, around pick 55-ish, where Seattle might be. That may be a little too far. I got to do some math, and I don't know if the Dolphins also lost their pick this year or someone did.
Yeah, I think you're looking at a late first-round guy that Seattle could easily trade up for.
We'll say 45.
Yeah, could trade up in the second round to get him. I think that'd be a good addition for them, and this is still a young team. There's still a lot of young pieces on this team with Tariq Woolen, Devon Witherspoon. Excited for the development of Charles Cross and Kenneth Walker. There's good players on this team. This is a talented team, but they got to fix that hole at quarterback, and they got to get a playmaker.
One of the best players I've seen play defense for this team in a long time this year, Boye Mafe.
Yeah.
I was questionable to pick. I think he was picked last year right around that Kenneth Walker. Yeah. That was in the range I wanted Malik Willis. I do have to say, I was not happy with the Kenneth Walker pick, but now K9, King Kenny, he's my guy. As one of my guys with cards, I collect a ton of his product. Not just because he's a good player, but he's just a likable guy in general. But Seattle, a lot of questions. Kenny Pickett, I think he'll start somewhere. I think he'll start somewhere next year.
I think he could start somewhere next year.
Might be for the Birmingham Stallions, but he will start some kind of professional sport next year for football. I think someone gives him a chance.
Listen, Kenny's had some good fourth quarters, but at the end of the day, he just does not get the job done, and he's not a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL.
And we knew that about that class. We knew that.
Yeah, we knew it. There's a reason why there were teams in that draft class that had higher picks than Pittsburgh that had a big quarterback need passed on him. Teams like Carolina had 6 in that year's draft passed on him. So, and shout out to Boye Mafe, another player that came in the Russell Wilson trade, making that trade look even worse for Denver, as we should be talking about Denver here pretty soon.
Oh, that's the next one. Where does Russell Wilson play football next year? Because I'm really beginning to believe that he was not the issue in Denver. I hate to say it, he's not the issue. I think you did 2 different coaches. Yeah, it's different. You had a better sample size in this year. And if we're going off the measuring stick of Patrick Mahomes, the stats are very comparable this year. No one wants to talk about that. Russell Wilson's very comparable. I think he starts next year. New England could be a spot for him.
Yeah.
Just run through the NFL real quick
New
off
Orleans?
the top of my head. New Orleans. Tennessee, if they want to give Derrick Henry one last shot.
Hey, maybe give Bryce Young a battle in camp in Carolina. Maybe. I mean,
that would ruin his confidence. I don't like it. That'd ruin his confidence.
Seems like everyone in Carolina is going to lose their job, but...
I don't know, though. Shout out Chris Tabor. He might stay for special teams.
He might be the only one left in that building, if we're being honest.
Realistically, he was one of the only Browns guys who didn't get fired after that 0-16 year. Like, he was around for those bad teams.
Yeah.
I think if anyone can stand in the fire and lead some kind of unit, it would be them. This Panthers team, they had some decent special teams moments throughout their time as a franchise, but we should go back to the Broncos and Chargers to finish that one up real quick. Chargers, the rebuild, it's either complete overhaul or a reload. I think the first domino to fall will be Austin Eckler regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he's still a top player. I think going in this year, I think we were talking potentially he can sneak in the Hall. That's done. I hate
Hall
to say
of Fame?
If you gave him another good year this year, then yes, but this year proves he's done. I think he can still be good, but he would need to string a couple more. Like CMC is a comparable player, but CMC at least can run the ball a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I wouldn't compare Christian McCaffrey to Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler is a good player, but a lot of the times kind of gets overrated by fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of the things he can do, a lot of other backs can do. But he's still a good player, and he still had a lot of production for the Chargers. And speaking of the Chargers, it's another questionable future there. Who comes in to be the head coach of this football team? In my opinion, I think you load the Brinks truck for Ben Johnson. This guy has done unbelievable.
Monty Williams.
You get that comparison with Monty Williams, but I think you have to take the chance. I mean, this is Ben Johnson. These offensive coordinators only come around so often. The Sean McVays of the world, the Kyle Shanahans of the world. These guys only come around so often. I think Ben Johnson is the next coming.
Kyle Shanahan's dad came around.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
so that's two Shanahans. There you go.
Yeah.
But I think you gotta be careful where you put your money. I think Eckler, like I said, he's done. And the reason I said potential Hall of Fame hype, if he got 2,000 yards this year, then you gotta put him. You gotta start thinking, okay, this guy give it. But at this point,
too much tread on the tires.
I might be able to name a running back for pretty much almost every team who had a better year than Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
I think right now the most comparable player that he can get a younger comparison to. Take a guess of who I think I can compare him to, other than his rushing attempts. There's a young guy.
I was thinking. There's a guy, I think Bijan's a much better runner, but I think Bijan could do things in the passing and running game. Maybe Eckler's a better receiving back, but both guys get action and on both areas of rushing and passing. So
I see Devon A. Chin.
I
see Devon A. Chin, except for the rushing. I think the impact in the passing game is comparable to what Eckler's had. It's just the running game, he's so much better.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And in a way, they're kind of different players. A-Chain. You're not going to find many running backs, apart from the guy on his own team, that are faster than him. So,
and he might be somewhere new next year. They might just run with A-Chain.
Yeah, I mean, if I were them, I'd roll with A-Chain. You got the rookie contract. Mostert's still a very good player. Still a guy that could probably get roles on almost every single NFL team.
I want him in Baltimore. If you're a Ravens fan and you get him in that offense with Lamar, put him on the goal line, put him under center, you have to account for two different guys.
Imagine a read option with Lamar Jackson and Raheem Mostert. I mean, you got to put Tyreek Hill on defense to catch up to one of those.
Add Odell to potentially pass the ball to someone
that
on that.
Would be wild.
Oh, that would be great to see. Another thing great to see for the Chiefs fans.
Yeah.
Patty Dimes.
Yeah.
We'll call him Patty Dimes for a second, because he looked pretty good today, silencing a lot of haters, but still a rough game for the Chiefs. And I think we watched maybe a couple minutes of that game.
Yeah.
MVS did MVS things.
Yeah, this receiving core needs to be locked up for holding down more talent than I've ever seen. 8% drop rate, one of the highest in the last decade. I think it's clear Patrick Mahomes isn't the issue, but I'm looking at Travis Kelce. I'm looking at his season, and I'm thinking of the next guy up mentality. Travis, you're the only viable receiving guy on this team. I want to see some more production. Now, granted, I am sure that teams are putting 5 guys on him because.
But Gronk did arguably better.
Yeah, I mean, look at some Tom Brady's weapons. No disrespect to Julian Edelman. No disrespect to
quarterback. Two of them actually, I think, right?
Danny Amendola. No disrespect to any of them, but Rob Gronkowski held down that ship, and in my opinion, I don't know if there's too much tread on the tires, but Kelce has got to put it together. Either it be in the postseason or next week. They need production, because if they don't, I think this is a first-round exit. I don't know if you agree with me, but
It depends. I want to see who they play. I want to see if it's the Browns. I think that would be
back and forth.
I think that'd be an awful opponent for the Browns to play. They want that AFC South team. But another thing to look at here, I don't think Kelsey's the best tight end in the league right now. There's one guy who I think is better than him, maybe two. Yeah. The one is too early to say. The one that's too early to say is Laporta. Yeah. But the other one is pretty obvious who the other.
George Kittle, yeah.
I was not going to say Kittle.
No.
Who's tight end won in fantasy this year?
Oh, God.
With like 3 different quarterbacks and being man-marked. Yeah. And Hawk did not have the fallback of Jay Jets to take a bunch of carries from him for a long time. And even through them, it was mainly when Jay Jets was gone that he did.
I mean, I think Kittle does he does kind of a unnoticed work of his blocking ability adds a big part of the game. But T.J. Hawkinson, another talented player, and in my opinion, I think I would take Hawk and Kittle right now over Kelsey. And it's no disrespect for Kelsey.
Is Laporta there yet? Is Laporta in that conversation? Laporta or Kelsey?
I don't like to. Travis Kelsey's a Hall of Famer. He's on the tight end Mount Rushmore. I don't want to disrespect him by saying a rookie is better than Travis Kelsey, who has been doing it year after year, did it with Alex Smith, now doing it with Patrick Mahomes. So I don't want to disrespect a legend like that.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to. Right now, I would take Sam Laporta. I think what he has done this year as a rookie from tight end U, I think Iowa has earned themselves the right of calling themselves tight end U. I think Don't they have another kid in the pipeline this year potentially?
I'm not sure. I don't watch a lot of Iowa football, but
no one does after this year. Yeah, but still. They produced Hawkinson and Noah Fant in the same season.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Noah Fant's not up there with, obviously, Hawk, but producing those level of tight ends who were both first-round picks, mind you.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, and even, like, if you want to compare, like, you start looking at other colleges, it's, you can name some colleges that got some guys in the league, but you start looking through the blue bloods of the college football, I don't think you can name more than 3 or 4 guys that are in the NFL. You look at Ohio State. How many tight ends they got in the NFL?
You got Ruckert?
Yeah.
You got... Vanette was for a while, but he's gone. That's about it.
And Bama, I mean, O.J. Howard, he's still making plays? I mean... Irv Smith Jr., but, I mean, obviously, I think we're taking Hawk and George Kittle over those two. So, shout out to Iowa. And Iowa's another school that does not get the 5 stars, but does a great job of developing talent. And they got some guys coming out of this year's class, like you said, a tight end who's going to make an impact in the NFL, in my opinion.
And Washington's very similar to them, just getting guys. They don't get the 5 stars over in Washington. I don't think Romeo came in as that highly touted. And now I think I have him mocked like 10 different teams in the 10 to 20 range. Yeah. He's there. Penix, he had the talent, but they really developed him. I think, look at Indiana, Penix to him now.
Yeah.
And then another guy, Oregon, Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix, for sure. I mean, he's been in the college football for as long as Joe Burrow. I think when he first started playing, Joe Burrow was starting for LSU. So everyone's going to make jokes about that. But Bo Nix had a spectacular... Stetson Bennett, yeah, the Stetson Bennett jokes, But I think, Bo Nix is a guy that you put him in the right system, just like you do any good quarterback coming out of the draft class, could be a starter potentially. He's got a big arm. And we were talking about Bo Nix potentially being the Heisman favorite at one point during the college football season. So, good for them.
I like him in New York, the Giants. I like him there. Or even the Jets. Put him a year behind Aaron.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of helped Jordan Love do something in the NFL.
Yeah.
But still, and speaking of Aaron Rodgers and his former team, they play in around 10 minutes. Who do you got in that game?
I think I like the Packers. I know Joe Barry's defense has been horrible. They've allowed the Steelers to have good games against them, and that's the Steelers under Matt Canada. They've allowed Bryce Young to have good games against them. But I trust this Packers team. I think Jordan Love is the star. I think he's the guy. But I think tonight they're gonna have a nice night and close out the season with the win.
Well, close out their road season. I know they play next week at home, but
close out the end of the season.
I'm gonna switch it here. I go with Jaron Hall and the Vikings. I gotta look at the stat lines of Justin Jefferson. The last 2 times he's played at home in the dome against them, I think he's
no Jair Alexander.
I think he's getting that 350 around there. It was like 184 last time out, the 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And the time before that, maybe a score in 150.
Yeah.
So let's just for the conservative 325, 350, and 4 scores or 3 scores against them in the last 2 times. I think you keep that up, especially with Hawkinson out. They're going to get the ball to him a lot more. Madison, I don't know if he's up right now. I don't think he is. I think it's Ty Chandler. But Ty Chandler's done a serviceable job.
Yeah.
Osborne can still do something. I think he's still active.
Yeah.
Osborne.
Jordan Addison, I believe.
Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I don't know how I forgot him. He's been a stud this year.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a complete opposite of what it was in the first half of the year. All these first-round wide receivers are garbage.
Yeah.
Now JSN's coming into his own. Addison into his own.
Yeah.
Flowers into his own. Rashee Rice a little bit down the board into his own. Puka into his own.
Obviously.
This is what we thought 2020 was going to be like when you had those guys. You had Judy, you had Ruggs, you had CD, you had J-Jets, you had Jalen Rager. That's what we thought this would be.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, you look at that class in 2020, you got CD Lamb and Jay Jettis, who are CD Lamb's playing like a top 3 wide receiver right now. Arguably up there as one of the best receivers in the league right now this season. But Jay Jettis, a guy that's also a top 5 receiver. But if you're looking at overall depth, this class might be better. The only really bust in this for wide receivers in this class is Quentin Johnston. I hate to mention his name. Maybe there's hope, but you got Justin Herbert as your quarterback, and you're just not.
How long? For how long until Jay Herbert has enough?
Yeah, I for sure.
Did Madden predict the future? Every single Madden save from like Madden 21, you'd see him leave pretty quickly. Like, how? I think this is the how. I mean, 20, 21, 22, 23. I think after next year, his contract's up.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Justin Herbert. I've seen, people saying that you could potentially trade Herbert. I don't think you do that. I think you do everything you can to lock down Herbert. It is so hard to draft a quarterback and develop him into a top 5 guy. And realistically, the Chargers made a lot of bad moves in free agency. They J.C. Jackson and some of these guys they picked up that they thought would be guys in the league and really starters. And in J.C. Jackson's case, a superstar, have not panned out. And it happens. And the Chargers need to kind of blow it up and start over.
And then finally, you got the playoffs next. You're going to be set. Who is your 1 through 7 in the AFC and NFC?
1 through 7 in AFC. Baltimore, obviously, I think they locked that down today. As for the 2 seed, I don't know all the records on top of my head, but I'll go with Miami. I think Kansas City, locked down the 3 seed today. And then for the 4 seed, that gets really tricky with some tiebreakers, but I think actually Jacksonville gets it done. I think they win the division there. And then as for the wild cards go, Cleveland, I think the Bills win that game against the Dolphins. And then the 7th seed, I believe that comes down to a Houston and Colts game. I think I got Houston winning that game, and I think Houston goes in for the 7th seed there for the AFC. Now, speaking towards the NFC, Niners at the 1 seed. The 2 seed, I believe, would be the Cowboys right now. Then the Lions at the 3, and then I think Tampa Bay gets it done. I think they close it out and get the 4 seed. And then if you're speaking for wild cards, Philly, and then the other team for wild card.
Rams have locked.
Rams have locked for 6, and then 7 is really a kind of a toss-up at this point. Tonight, I think if the Packers lose, they're out, and I think the Bears, if they lose, they're out. So there's a lot of teams, and there's a lot of teams that could really fill into that 7th spot. So I really don't know, to be honest.
All right, I'm going to go back to the AFC for a second here. 1, Ravens, obviously. I'm the Buffalo Bills get it done. They'll be the 2 seed.
Yeah.
Give me the Chiefs 3. And now this gets to a tough point of how do tiebreakers work, because I don't think that Jacksonville gets it done against Tennessee. I think for some odd reason, Derrick Henry goes off for 150 yards in what might be his last game with Tennessee. He might know that in the back of his head, and they get it done. So I get Houston at that 4 seed. So that means Cleveland has to go back to Houston again for the 3rd time in 2 seasons. I think if you go back a year, it's the 4th time in 3.
Yeah.
To go take on C.J. Stroud, who's playing his best football arguably right now.
Yeah.
As they're the 5 seed. The 6th seed, I think we're just going to say it's the Dolphins. It's going to have to.
Yeah, it would have to be.
Actually, the Dolphins are tight. The Browns need to win. The Browns actually might have something to play for next week, but they're not going to play for it. No. I still think the Browns get the job done over the Bengals because the Bengals also have nothing to play for. And Jamar Chase is at any bit questionable. He's sitting. Joe Mixon, same thing. Defense, Hendrickson, same thing.
Yeah.
The 7 seeds where it gets tough. Like I said, I think Jacksonville loses. And the Colts obviously lose. And the Steelers, I think, get the job done.
Happy to hear that.
With that being said, that then gets them to 10 wins with the Jags losing and the Colts losing.
Yeah.
Renegade won't be playing, but if a fan brings a speaker, they can blast it all they want.
Yeah.
They can blast it in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And then we're trying to figure out how they get in. That's the way.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty realistic. I think the Steelers get in.
I think they could, and
if not, you got to be looking at that Cardinals game.
Yeah, and they're playing Baltimore's bench next week, so if they don't win that, then that would be they'd obviously be out in that situation. So I think that there's a good chance of it happening for sure.
And then you got to go to the other side of things. NFC, 1 seed already locked down as the Niners. 2 seed Dallas gets it done. 3 seed Lions, 4 seed Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, easy going. The 5 seed is going to be the Eagles.
Yeah.
6 seed will be the Rams. Now I think you're down to 2 teams. There's a chance that it's down to the same 2 teams it was last year. It was 3. The Lions was the 3rd team, but if the Packers win tonight or the Vikings, whatever team wins, I think will have a shot. I think otherwise they're done because if they have the same record, they're done. So loser is out tonight. I think Jordan Love's not ready. Jaron Hall, is he ready? No, but 13-4 team last year opposed to a 9-8 team with a new quarterback. Give me the Vikings in that game. Seattle takes on the Cardinals, who just played upset. I think they win that game. If the Vikings win, I don't think it matters. I don't think it does. I think Seattle sneaks in. And honestly, I think they give the Cowboys a decent game again. But I still say Dallas does. And then finally, Super Bowl winner, I think we both can pretty much say
the Baltimore
Ravens. Yeah, we're kind of pretty much.
But we have to throw out there, this team won 14 games in 2019 and looked like the best team in the league and proceeded to lose to Derrick Henry at home.
I feel like it's the winner of the Browns and Ravens game versus the Niners. That's going to be the Super Bowl. And I think the winner of the Browns-Ravens game wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, it's been I need to make a change to my AFC. I think I had the...
I was waiting for you to change it. You're going to do the Bills at 2 and the Dolphins back at 6.
Flip them around. There you go. So those are our AFC playoff predictions.
Yep. 8:15, game's about to be on. We have another great game. Well, I would probably bring someone up after that game to talk about that one. But thank you for watching the post-game shows. I have been Nate Smee of SmeeSports. Vanilla alongside you.
Yep, Vanilla Sports on TikTok. You can follow me there. I make some videos sometimes about NFL news.
Got to get you on Twitter and Instagram. Got to get you up there.
I'll get there at some point,
All right, thank you for tuning into this longer episode, probably about a half-an-hour episode.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. I mean, I enjoy doing it, though, and hopefully we can do more of these in the future.
Hoping so. We're not going to keep you any longer. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, have a good one.
2024, it's going to be some teams' years, but unfortunately, it won't be the Panthers.
Yeah, that's for sure.